Fighting for Faith and Nation, Dialogues with Sikh Militants, by Cynthia Kepply Mahmood. Blue Star. The Khalsa is like a finely tuned instrument, it is said. All it takes is someone to hold his finger on the right note. In recent times, that someone was Jarnail Singh Bhindranwala. The episode he provoked, the Indian Army attack on the Golden Temple in June 1984, forms the raison d'etre for the continuing insurgency, populated largely though not wholly by Khalsa Sikhs. In this chapter, I examine the events directly leading up to that confrontation, the battle itself, and the immediate aftermath. Whether or not the current insurgency continues or peters out, this Holocaust of 1984, is bound to reverberate through Sikh history for a long time to come. The people. Before 1984, as the conversation recorded in the previous chapter shows, those involved in militant activities, were mainly individuals from the Damdami Taksal, the moving university of the Sikhs, and the Akhand Kirtani Jatthar, a hymn-singing organization. For these people, the confrontation with the Nirankaris in 1978, forms the keystone of their commitment. That was the moment when many of them came to the conclusion, that justice within an Indian framework was unattainable. For the great bulk of the Sikh population, however, this event took place somewhat on the margins of mainstream society, among highly religious people. By contrast, all Sikhs were brought up short by the 1984 debacle, which reached even those who had become avowedly secular. The attack on the Golden Temple has been compared to an attack on the Vatican or Mecca. How would Catholics, however lapsed, or Muslims, however disenchanted, feel? The assault on the Golden Temple complex was taken by the Sikh community not only in immediate, but in deeply historical terms. It resonated with other events in the past, in which enemies attacked, laid siege to, and destroyed the Sanctum Sanctorum. That Operation Blue Star would be perceived in these terms, that analogies would quickly be drawn with Afghan and Mughal times, was recognized by those with personal knowledge of the Sikhs. This community has always had a pervasive awareness of history, and the role of the Sikhs in it. Sikhism is after all a very young religion, and the lives of the major figures in it, are not shadowy legends but matters of historical record. The buildings they constructed are still around, the clothes they wore for the most part, are still the everyday dress of the Sikhs, as instructed by their gurus. And though there is no recognized tradition, of genealogically linking oneself to gurus within the Khalsa, as there is in Muslim societies with regard to the Prophet and Caliphs, the strong sense of siblinghood leads Orthodox Sikhs, to feel a strong emotive tie to members of their family, who fought and died for Sikhism in the past. Certainly, this deep sense of historicity, helped Jarnail Singh Bhindranwala acquire the following that he had, prior to his death during Operation Blue Star. Jarnail Singh was born of a rural family of modest means, in Road village in 1947. He was of Jat background, the caste group that provided the backbone of Sikh militancy, from historical times to the present. Various authors have in fact attempted to interpret Sikh violence as an aspect of Jat culture, an attempt that has antagonized militants today, who feel their stance is prompted by religious principle, not cultural tradition. In any case, Bhindranwala's background was no different from that of thousands of other Sikh boys, who grew up in rural areas with minimal but adequate schooling, and a strong family commitment to Orthodox Sikhism. As the last of 7 sons, he was relatively free from family or agricultural responsibilities, and from an early age, spent much of his time with the Sikh scriptures. Joginder Singh, Jarnail Singh's father, sent the boy to study at Damdami Taksal after his primary schooling, the seminary described as a moving university, by Jarnail Singh's boyhood companion and later follower, Iqbal Singh. Taksal means mint in Punjabi, and the institution of the Damdami Taksal, believed to have been established by none other than Baba Deep Singh, can be appropriately understood as a place where spiritual individuals are shaped, like coins from a mint. As the presumed founder of Damdami Taksal, Baba Deep Singh's commitment to avenge the destruction of the Golden Temple by the Afghans, stands as a continuing model for Damdami Taksal activism, in defense of the faith. Though the Taksal education is purely religious in nature, and is hence dismissed by many commentators, I am not the only one to have noticed that its products can be remarkably sophisticated. Mark Tully, the BBC correspondent who closely followed the rise of Bhindranwala, and the subsequent debacle at Amritsar, wrote with surprise, that a young teacher there was able to engage in a complex argument, involving the Bible and the Quran, as well as the Sikh scriptures. Certainly, the tendency of those with secular educations, to dismiss the Damdami Taksal as nurturant, solely of fanaticism, is both misplaced and arrogant. To be sure, its members, a more appropriate term than graduates, did form the core of the original militancy, and in that sense it could perhaps be compared with the religious schools at Qom, which nurtured the Ayatollah Khomeini, and other key figures of the Iranian Revolution. But the articulate quality of Iqbal Singh, among others, belies the accusation of narrowness directed at the Taksal. Its headquarters at Chowk Maida, about 25 miles from Amritsar, still serves as a fountainhead of orthodox Sikh learning. Under the stewardship of Karta Singh, the Damdami Taksal's alienation from the central government of India grew. Of course, during the abuses of the emergency years, 1975 to 1977, many Indians' alienation from the central government grew, but the Akali Dal, the major Sikh political party, was notably outspoken about its discontent with Indira Gandhi's censorship of the press, arrest of opposition leaders, and dramatic enhancement of police powers. The Save Democracy protest launched by the Sikh party, resulted in the detainment of some 45,000 activists, and Gurudwaras across Punjab, were centres of anti-emergency sentiment. The opposition party under the leadership of socialist, Jayaprakash Narayan, called the Akali Dal, the last bastion of democracy. Jarnail Singh, like Iqbal Singh, grew to maturity in an atmosphere in which political activities against the central government, went hand in hand at Damdami Taksal, with the chanting of scripture and theological debate. These were all of a piece, as Iqbal Singh said in the interview, when he claimed that it was not politics but a way of life, a seamless whole, that engaged the Taksal students in the 1970s. Karta Singh, Bhindranwala's predecessor as head of the moving university, was killed in a car crash in 1977, as Iqbal Singh noted. Jarnail Singh was appointed head at the young age of 31, and immediately rose to the challenge of continuing Karta Singh's political activism. He had been married at the age of 19 and had 2 sons, but when he was recognized as Sant Bhindranwala, he relinquished most of his family responsibilities, to devote full time to the Taksal. In this he followed a long tradition of Sants, who were historically an important part of rural Sikh life, bringing news and a quality of entertainment from village to village, with their dramatic public sermons and readings of scripture. The British, it seems, recognized the political potential of the Sant role, devoting attention to tracking these wandering holy men. By all accounts, Sant Jarnail Singh Bhindranwala was a charismatic personality. Tall and lean, with deep-set eyes, a prominent nose, and a ready grin, his blue turban tied in characteristic tiers, he was as photogenic as he was personally impressive. Though he never learned English, his command of Punjabi was superb, and soon his speeches were making the rounds of Punjabi villages on cassette tapes, radically increasing the range of his influence. He eventually became adept at radio, press, and television interviews as well. Since Jarnail Singh Bhindranwala was largely responsible for launching the current Sikh militancy, he is now valorized by militants and demonized by their enemies, and accounts from these divergent sources seem often to be referring to 2 completely different people. Though the Indian press at various times compared him with Rasputin and Hitler, those who knew him personally, uniformly report his general likability and ready humor, as well as his total dedication to Sikhism. Joyce Pettigrew, a Scottish anthropologist who has studied the Sikh militancy closely, witnessed the close relationship between Bhindranwala and his followers. A Sikh reared in the West, clean-shaven that is, not orthodox, told of his first acquaintance with Bhindranwala. The first thing I noticed about Bhindranwala was that he made everybody feel welcome. Nobody was an outsider with him, no matter what their appearance, clean-shaven or bearded. He was very human, very soft. He was firm on his views, of course, but he had a sense of humor too. He asked me, "When are you going to become my brother? When are you going to become orthodox, grow a beard?" I answered, "Well, I'll try." But he laughed and said, "If you just stop trying, you'll become my brother quicker." From the facial aspect, I mean. What he meant was that if I just let nature take its course, if I didn't shave, I would look like a Sikh more quickly. This was the way he would gently remind people to live as Sikhs. He was clear in his example, but he didn't put pressure on me or anything. Everyone would feel comfortable in his presence. Bhindranwala's appeal was such that the frequency of initiations into the Khalsa rose dramatically across Punjab, as did the level of rhetoric regarding the perceived assault on Sikh values from the Hindu community. Bhindranwala and his closest companions, including Amrik Singh, the son of Sant Karta Singh and head of the All India Sikh Students' Federation, started carrying firearms with them regularly. This action was defended as within the bounds of the Sikh tradition, whose primary symbol, the double-edged sword, was itself a weapon. The 1978 clash between the followers of Jarnail Singh Bhindranwala and the Sant Nirankari sect at Amritsar was the beginning of the serious turn toward militancy, for many who would become leaders in the upcoming struggle. Not only were the core of Damdami Taxal activists involved here, but they were joined by another group committed to Orthodox Sikh tradition, called the Akhand Kirtani Jather. The Akhand Kirtani Jather was founded by Birendir Singh, 1878–1961, a Sikh mystic who had been active in the Gadar and independence movements, and had been sentenced to life imprisonment by the British. It focused on hymn singing, or kirtan, as the path to preservation of Orthodox Sikh tradition. The original Nirankaris had taken a more mystical approach to Sikhism, since their founding in the 19th century by Baba Dayal Das. The followers of that Nirankari sect coexist peacefully with mainstream Sikh tradition. But the practices of one group, the Sant Nirankaris, were seen as directly heretical to the orthodox Sikhism expounded by Bhindranwala. Not only did they begin to revere their new founder and his successors as gurus, but they also added their own scriptures to the Adi Granth. The movement grew quickly. On April 13, 1978, the Sant Nirankaris were to hold a convention in Amritsar. April 13 was celebrated as the founding day of the Khalsa, and the proposed Nirankari convention on this day, in the holy city, was particularly galling to Orthodox Sikhs. Some felt, in fact, that the entire Nirankari episode was provoked on purpose by the central government to destabilize and disunify Sikhs. In any case, about 200 members of Damdami Taxal and Akhand Kirtani Jather formed a procession headed by Biforger Singh, a prominent member of Akhand Kirtani Jather, to protest the Nirankari heresy. Bhindranwala was not present, though he played an important role in launching the protest. It is not clear exactly who provoked whom. In the actual encounter, some observers assert that Forger Singh made a threatening gesture, or swiped at Baba Gobichan Singh, the Nirankari leader, with his sword, while others place him inside an auditorium at the time when the fight broke out on the streets. He did have a group of guards, who opened fire on the Orthodox Sikhs. A fight ensued, and at the end of the melee, 13 Orthodox Sikhs and 2 Nirankaris lay dead. Eventually a case was registered against 62 Nirankaris, by the Akali-led government of Punjab. It was heard in Hindu-majority Haryana however, and all 62 Sant Nirankaris were acquitted. Lala Jagat Narain, chief editor and owner of the Hind Samachar group of newspapers, appeared as a witness in defense of the Nirankaris, and they received widespread support in the media. Orthodox Sikhs in Punjab mobilized against what seemed to be anti-Sikh sentiment in India nationally, and began to talk of an outright conspiracy to defame Sikhism. A Hukamnama, or letter of authority, was issued by the Akal Takht, in which Sikhs were instructed to ostracize the Sant Nirankaris. Bhindranwala stepped up his rhetoric several notches. In the years following the Nirankari debacle, a series of murders took place in Punjab and surrounding areas, many certainly the work of Bhindranwala's group, or a newly founded parallel organization, the Babar Khalsa, which, following its historical namesake, the Babar Akalis, vowed to avenge the deaths of Sikhs killed in defense of the faith. Baba Gobichan Singh, the Nirankari guru, was killed in 1980, and Lala Jagat Narain, the incendiary newspaper editor, was killed in 1981. The Babar Khalsa activists took up residence in the Golden Temple complex as well, to which they would retreat after going on missions, to punish or deliver justice to those who offended against orthodox Sikh tenets. There were episodes of heavily symbolic communal violence, cows' heads deposited in temples, cigarette packages tossed into gurudwaras. Bhindranwala started urging all Sikhs to buy weapons and motorcycles rather than television sets. When the Hindus come with their Sten guns, what are you going to do, fight them with your television aerials, he asked. He believed that all Amritdharis, those who had taken Amrit, should also be Shastradharis, weapons bearers. Though Bhindranwala was not using the word Khalistan, and talked in terms of greater autonomy for Punjab, rather than national sovereignty per se, he used the term, Qaum, to refer to the Sikh people, a word with the connotation of nationhood. It had been used, for example, by Muhammad Ali Jinnah, in the effort to achieve the Muslim state of Pakistan. From the teeth of the wheel, to the edge of the sword, from being ground to death on the wheel of torture, to the drawing of swords, was a typical rhetorical leap made by Bhindranwala and other activists. And draw swords they did, not only against the prominent figures noted previously, but against more than 100, possibly 300, other people perceived as anathema to orthodox Sikhism. Nearly every academic and media source on the rise of Bhindranwala notes his apparent ties to the Congress Party, particularly through Gyani Zail Singh, the President of India, up through the early 1980s. The intent was allegedly to use Bhindranwala as a pawn against the Akali Dal, Congress's chief political rival in Punjab. Several of my interlocutors claim an opposite scenario, that is, that the Akali Dal itself started rumors of Bhindranwala's links to Congress, as a way of thwarting his growing popularity among its own constituency. There is evidence for both of these possibilities, and I believe Robin Jeffrey may be most accurate in his assessment, when he writes that, the evidence suggests that Bhindranwala exercised a cunning independence, playing the factional antagonisms of Punjab politics with knowledge and skill. In this independence lay much of Bhindranwala's appeal. It left him untainted by close association with any of the older political leaders, yet at the same time suggested that he knew how to handle them. Whatever ties Bhindranwala may have had with Congress in the early days, it would be misleading to suggest that Congress created the Bhindranwala phenomenon. It was, in my opinion, sui generis. Help may have been received from outside, as later the Khalistani militancy would be helped by Pakistan, but the dynamic to be understood here is internal. Emphasizing the role of outside agencies, rather, is a way of minimizing the seriousness of the challenge presented by Bhindranwala himself. By the early 1980s, the sight of armed Sikhs sitting atop buses, or riding around on motorcycles became common, and though the majority of Sikhs condemned the violence of the extremists, Bhindranwala nonetheless attracted huge crowds everywhere he went. Increasing discontent with the central government was expressed in other forums as well. The Dharmyud Morcha, or Righteous Protest, launched in August 1982 by Bhindranwala and Akali leader, Harchand Singh Longoval, resulted in the arrest of tens of thousands of Sikhs at a time, overflowing the capacity of the Punjab criminal and judicial system. Riots were set off in September of that year, when a bus train accident resulted in the deaths of 38 Akali protesters, and police fired on a largely unarmed Sikh crowd, gathered in protest outside the parliament buildings in New Delhi. When Bhindranwala was arrested in connection with the murder of Lala Jagat Narain, his supporters sprayed a crowded marketplace in Jalandhar with machine gun fire in retaliation. By the time of the much publicized Asian Games, hosted for the first time in New Delhi, Sikhs were seen as a security threat to the capital. Chief Minister Bhajan Lal of Haryana issued orders to stop Sikhs from attending the Games, and even prominent military figures like retired Indian Air Force Chief Marshal Arjun Singh, and Lieutenant General Jagjit Singh Arora, who had accepted the surrender of Pakistan after the 1971 Bangladesh War, were stopped en route and questioned, as was former Foreign Minister of India, Swaran Singh. Though the Sikh community as a whole was stunned by this treatment, little about the attempt to prevent Sikhs from attending the Asian Games appeared in the Indian press. The interesting thing about the growing extremism of Bhindranwala and others was that it was supported by a wide range of people in significant government and, particularly, police and military posts. At one point Chief Minister of Punjab, Darbara Singh, constructed a list of 22 senior government officials affiliated in some way with the extremists, and between 1981 and 1984, Indian intelligence agents drew up a list of some 4,000 police personnel, with links to the nascent militancy. As many as 170 Army, Navy, and Air Force officers above the rank of colonel supported the Sikh cause. Because of the Sikhs' traditional prominence in the armed services, many in the state had substantial military training, leading Robin Jeffrey to comment that Punjab had the makings of a formidable people's army. Two top major generals from the Indian Army, in fact, became advisors to Bhindranwala in the period preceding Operation Blue Star, Jaswant Singh Bhullar, who later fled to the United States, and Shubeg Singh, who was killed in the 1984 assault. Shubeg Singh was of particular importance here, as he was an expert in guerrilla warfare, who had played a prominent role in training the Bangladeshi insurgents during the 1971 Pakistan War. He was largely responsible for preparing the defenses at the Golden Temple complex, which, according to Lieutenant General K. S. Brar, who commanded the Indian Army assault, were excellent. Shubeg Singh has said that it was the humiliation meted out to him at the Asian Games that prompted him to join forces with Bhindranwala. Already then, there is something puzzling about the extremism and terrorism of the Bhindranwala group, which, it is true, were vociferously condemned by more moderate Sikhs all over India, but which attracted support from various quarters, not obviously allied to the quest for religious orthodoxy, characteristic of Bhindranwala's own rhetoric. The police crackdown in Punjab ordered by Darbara Singh, which by 1983 resulted in an average of 50 Sikh youths detained, and a half-dozen killed each week, prompted a wider acceptance of Bhindranwala's claim that the government was out to destroy the Sikhs. BBC correspondent Mark Tully and his colleague Satish Jacob report that Darbara Singh himself admitted that many of the police encounters with suspected militants amounted to cold-blooded murder. Some 800 Sikhs were in jails as suspected terrorists, and extra battalions of police personnel appeared in Punjabi cities. The People's Union for Civil Liberties, an Indian human rights group, accused the Punjab police of behaving like a barbarian force. In response, Akali initiatives like Rasta Roko, or Block the Roads, and Kam Roko, Stop Work, drew massive popular support in Punjab. 7 other states also supported Sikh demands for greater autonomy for Punjab, and the decentralization of government power. Meanwhile, violence on both sides escalated in Punjab. Militants raided 3 armories in April, in a successful attempt to enlarge their arsenal. Police opened fire on crowds of demonstrators and killed dozens. A bus was stopped by turbaned Sikhs, and Hindu passengers executed on the road. A plane was hijacked to Lahore by Sikh militants, in protest against the arrest of Bhindranwala, and bank robberies occurred as well. Punjab was declared a disturbed area, and President's rule was imposed in October 1983. These measures, however, did not succeed in controlling violence. The activities of some Hindu extremist organizations in Punjab and the neighboring states contributed further to the worsening violent atmosphere. A Gurdwara, at Charu, in Rajasthan, was burnt down on November 26, 1983. On February 14, 1984, an extremist Hindu organization called the Hindu Suraksha Samiti, the Hindu Protection Organization, organized a band, or closure of all public and private sector activities in Punjab, in which 11 persons died. During the band, according to the government's white paper on the Punjab agitation, some members of extremist Hindu organizations committed the sacrilege of damaging the model of the Golden Temple and a picture of Guru Ram Das at the Amritsar railway station. Government figures claimed there were some 2,500 suspected terrorists by the spring of 1984. In April, organized groups of militants attacked 37 railway stations in 12 districts, in a concerted attempt to disrupt Punjab's transportation system. The All India Sikh Students' Federation was banned. It claimed some 40,000 members, and the Central Reserve Police Force and the Border Security Force were called into Punjab. They were fighting against both Bhindranwala's group and the Babar Khalsa, which feuded and possibly fought each other as well. In addition, there was the Dal Khalsa or Army of the Pure, founded by Gajinder Singh of Chandigarh, one of the hijackers of the plane to Lahore. The militants remained, however, at least temporarily safe, in their refuge in the precincts of the Golden Temple complex. Whether Prime Minister Indira Gandhi would have the nerve to attack it or not, was the question on everyone's minds, as spring turned to summer in 1984. The political party of the Sikhs, the Akali Dal, had raised crucial political issues with the central government that remained unresolved, as tensions escalated in 1984. These issues included a settlement of a long-standing dispute over the apportionment of Punjab's river waters, the question of the allocation of the city of Chandigarh as the joint capital of Punjab and Haryana, and the implementation of a resolution calling for more autonomy for the state. Furthermore, there were religious demands that were highlighted by the militants at the Golden Temple complex. Bhindranwala called for the establishment of a holy city status for Amritsar, which he believed was unfairly granted to Hindu cities like Haridwar and Banaras, renaming the train from Delhi to Amritsar as the Golden Temple Express, setting up a powerful transmitter to broadcast hymns from the Golden Temple, and arranging for the SGPC, the Sikh organization that governs Gurudwaras, to have full control over all historical Sikh shrines throughout India. What happened was that at the last moment, Indira Gandhi and her negotiators conceded some of the religious demands, which were from the viewpoint of the government, relatively trivial, but the more serious political issues remained unresolved. Meanwhile, the level of violence and counter-violence had reached such a point, that even as discussions about the issues were proceeding, preparations were being made for a military solution to the crisis. Such are the bare facts of the events that led up to the dramatic confrontation of June 1984, at the Golden Temple complex. This spare recitation does not convey the atmosphere of tension that had built to a crescendo, not only in Punjab, but in neighboring areas as well, in the months preceding that face-off. I happened to be in Delhi in the fall of 1983, and saw personally what was happening to totally uninvolved and apolitical Sikhs I knew. They were stopped and searched before going into movie theaters, for fear they might be carrying bombs. Hindu shopkeepers with whom they had always dealt, suddenly refused to serve them. Although my Sikh friends held no brief for Bhindranwala or his methods, they felt insulted and hurt by the presumed association between their turbans, and the increasing violence in Punjab. The image of the Sikh community was, indeed, changing. As one Hindu woman told me at the time, it used to be that if we were riding on a train and saw a Sikh in our carriage, we would feel protected. Now if we see one, we feel scared. When I told this to a Sikh friend, he was quite upset. This person was later missing after the November 1984 anti-Sikh riots in Delhi. The broader historical factors that contributed to the rise of a Sikh revivalist movement in the 1970s, and the political and religious context that encouraged various others to sympathize with it, are considered in the following chapter. Here, I concentrate on the epical battle at the Golden Temple, between the militants and the Indian army, that has spawned what we now know as the Khalistan movement. If the Indian army attacks the Golden Temple, Bhindranwala used to say, the foundations of Khalistan will be laid. In June 1984, the army did just that, thus magnifying the danger of Sikh separatism 100-fold.